Hi, my name is Doris, and this is Heart of Stitches, episode number 7. Welcome back to any returning viewers, and welcome to any new viewers. I'm happy to be here to talk about knitting and crochet. I've recently returned from Scotland on vacation. I went on a knitting retreat with the grocery girls, and it was fabulous. Everything about it was fabulous. The last time that I podcasted, which was, 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, I was a hot mess and I apologize for that. I am trying different things with this microphone today. I'm actually wearing it. I recorded the whole thing last time with the microphone plugged in behind me, so I had no sound. So I had to do it again. And in between recording the first time and recording the second time, I had changed my shirt. So I put my blouse back on, and I didn't realize it until after I had actually published it on YouTube that the inside of my collar was turned in through the whole thing. So, and I had my microphone on the table in front of me, and different things when I'm getting things off the table, it was making some clacking noises. So I apologize for that too. So we're going to try the mic on me today. Hopefully I won't keep whacking it, but this is a work in progress. Today I have one finished object, which, spoiler alert, it's here. And instead of 6 things today, I thought I would just talk about Scotland because it's my 6 things and more. And then that's it. So I guess we could just get crack-a-lackin'. My finished object is the Ranunculus by Midori Hirose. I made mine in Berroco Arno. It is 57% cotton and 43% merino wool. Comes in a 50-gram skein that has 159 yards, so 316 DK, light DK maybe. It worked up great, and I have it's, I think, what they call a blown yarn, where it's a cotton. I think cotton is the grayish sort of heathered tubing, and then the purple is the wool blown into it. It worked great. It's not splitty at all because it's a tube. My one complaint, if I were to have one, where they join in the factory, the tubes together, it's a little gluey spot that sort of sticks up. And sometimes when you're knitting, you don't realize it. I think I have one on the front somewhere. So I used all of my yarn. I actually finished this in Scotland in my hotel room. So I was trying to, on my last few rows, like measure how much I used. So I tripled that because I was doing the Jenny stretchy bind off, and then pulled out of the middle, tied it up in a hair clip actually, and then finished. So once I got to the hair clip, there's time to bind off. I probably overestimated a little. I have this much left. I was going for like almost 0 quantity left. So I am going to save this, and if those glued spots ever come loose, I can duplicate stitch over and try to repair it. So that I'm going to save. I don't know that it'll do that, but it does feel like glue, and glue sometimes is water soluble. So just to be on the safe side, I'm going to keep this in case I need to do any repairs. And this can't be more than a yard or two of yarn left. So as far as yarn chicken, I had bundled up, so I knew I would have enough, and then just went until I hit that mark. The colorway of this yarn is 5036, and it didn't say that on the ball band, but when I put it into Ravelry, it came up that color is called Wisteria, which does make sense for the purple color, so I think that's true. I made the 5th size using a size 10 needle. For the ribbing on the cuffs and the bottom, I used a size 8 needle. And I did 6 rows of ribbing. And then for the Jenny's stretchy bind off, I used a size 6 needle. So I am completely happy with this pattern. I think it's written in a genius way, completely different than anything I've ever seen before. But it's very clear once you know to look at a chart instead of having it written out. This is a comfortable sweater. It hasn't been blocked yet. And I finished it probably on day 7 or 8 of our trip. And I wore this on the last day, day 9. Wore it all day unblocked, and it's not bunchy. My gauge on this with this yarn was pretty smooth and even, so it didn't have that. I just got finished look about it. I did the smaller neckline and the short rows in both the front and the back. I didn't make any modifications other than making my sleeves to the length that I wanted, which I wrote 32 rows. So I think, whatever it was, I did 32 rows of stockinette and then bound off with 6 rows of ribbing on the bottom. Hopefully I don't flash you here. I did more than 6 rows of ribbing at the bottom. It looks like I did 9 or 10. So it's a little bit longer, heavier at the bottom than on the sleeves. Work in progress. I might have to frog this, and it's the artwork sweater. It's big. I had finished, I forgot what episode it was, episode 4 maybe. I had finished the Paloma sweater, and when I finished it, it fit perfectly, and when I blocked it, it was big. I think I'm in the same position again with this, especially the sleeves. Because of the way the design works where the sleeves are patterned, I needed to add rows more than what the pattern called for because my row gauge tends to be short. But I kept doing the sleeves in pattern because it's a pattern, and I didn't, maybe there was a way I could have done that differently, but so my sleeves are big. I mean, they started out big, bigger than that what they were supposed to be. So I can show you under the arm between the two rib. It's wider than it should have been. So I have been decreasing more than the pattern calls for. This little yarn is where the other sleeve is, so I'll know how to match it. It's still big. I'm not sure I can put it on enough to show. So I'm down to, mid forearm, and it's still really big. So I have to either decrease even faster maybe than I am, resolve myself to have a bigger cuff than I like on a sweater, or to do a few rounds of more rapid decrease at the end and then have a little gather, which isn't what the pattern calls for. I looked at the projects in Ravelry for this pattern, and some people's sleeves looked big at the bottom and other people's didn't. So what I'm going to do is finish this sleeve. If I hate it, I'm going to have to frog back to, right here is where I went off pattern and was adding rows. So I'm good up till there, but I might have to take out my sleeves and all of this body and start over. If it's good in the front right now, the back looks a little baggy, especially because it's a little smocky looking at the moment. But that will be a shame. Finish a sleeve, try it on again, and decide to fish or cut bait. Either, keep going, and the sweater right now is not so big that it's that problematic. It's bigger than I wanted it to be, but it's not going to be so big that it's horrible, except for I don't want a big floppy sleeve. So I will keep you posted on my artwork sweater. And I like the sweater so much, and here now a little disappointed, but I'm disappointed in myself. I should have known, and I did know not to make the sleeves so big. But I don't know. I just thought it was going to work out easier. But the back is the star on this. It has that beautiful like tab detail in the back, and the sleeves pattern radiates from there. In the front, it doesn't. It just has a little bit of broken rib detail that goes down the front of it. This is, I'm going out of order here for what I should say, artwork by Hinterm Stein, and it's a beautiful pattern. If my row gauge was right, I wouldn't be having the trouble that I'm having at the moment. And if I was more experienced and knew, what to do and what not to do. And, making the mistakes is how you learn. So here I am learning. I'm using a size 6 needle, and it is Mountain Meadow wool. The base is Cody and the color natural. It's a 2-ply sport, and it's made in Wyoming in America. So I will keep you posted. I still have high hopes for this sweater. I really like it. And Hinterm Stein has released another pattern. It's the same sort of signature, this little detail is in a lot of her designs. So I really like that. I'll tell you everything about the Grocery Girls knitting trip. And I bought a lot of yarn, and I was gifted yarn while we were there. So I'm going to go in order of by day, and hopefully that'll keep me from forgetting anything. I went in a day ahead of when it started. So for me, I have a day 0. Our hotel was in the Grass Market area of Edinburgh. A little walk while my first day there. So I'm by myself, and up around the corner from where my hotel was is the Greyfriars Kirkyard. There's this true story, and it's a very sweet movie. When I showed it, my kids and I watched it years ago now, but it was on Disney Channel. I don't think it's a Disney movie. It's a English movie, but called Greyfriars Bobby, and it's about this little dog that follows its owner from the rural area into the city where the owner was retiring. The owner dies, and it's not a spoiler, the owner dies at the beginning of the movie. And the little dog won't leave his grave, and just stays in this little area, the Grass Market area of Edinburgh. And the movie's all about, some people appreciated the little dog and wanted him to stay, and other people didn't and wanted him to go. So it's about, the sort of the trials and tribulations of the town and this little dog, Greyfriars Bobby. So there's a little statue. So it's a pedestal with this little, I don't know what kind of terrier, it's not a Scotty dog with that big long nose. It's a wire hair terrier or a Cairn terrier or something like that. And people walk by and pat its nose, and you have to reach up because it's on a pedestal. And one tour guide really was yelling at people for not touch Bobby. So I didn't touch it. I took a picture. I was sitting at a pub that had some outdoor seating, and it was right behind the Greyfriars Bobby statue. So I sat there for a while and watched all these people petting the dog, and some of them getting yelled at. The whole trip I was by myself, so it's completely outside of my comfort zone. So I walked around, and I had a scone with clotted cream. So I sat outside and just watched the people go by in Grass Market. And then I got to this pub, and I went in and got my drink, came back out, and then all the tables were taken. So I had asked this guy if I could sit with him, and we ended up talking. He was a younger guy, maybe around 40-ish, and ended up hearing his life story, and we had a good time. And we watched people petting Bobby. The next day, so we got to meet the Grocery Girls, which everybody was fangirling over that. We got a gift pack from the Grocery Girls. It gave us all a little gift bag with trying trying to get everything and not make too much noise. So they I don't know who drew this little logo, but it says Scotland and Grocery Girls Knit. So it's a little bus trip with the balls of yarn. Maybe we'll try and get that closer. We got these balls of yarn, which are timber yarn, and it's made in Canada. So they brought these over from Canada, I guess. It's a DK weight, and so this is a color changing barber pole kind of yarn. This one has that. I never use this stuff. What is it called? It says it's nylon, but I know people call that sparkly something, spalina, something like that. So that was a nice gift from the Grocery Girls. You got a little toolkit that came in this bag with your sticker on it. The first day after we had our meet and greet and everybody, we went on a double-decker bus for afternoon tea. They had everything high tea should have. So like sandwiches and scones, a little tiny pavlova. We sat at tables of 4. I sat with a mother and daughter knitting duo and Jodi. Traci and 3 other people were behind us. And then it drove us around Edinburgh. So we were all eating. There was Prosecco. There was tea, of course. It was wonderful. I think there was coffee. I don't drink coffee, so I don't know. Then later on, there was a vault tour, which I skipped. I've been to Edinburgh before, and I have done the vault tour. The whole ghost story thing is just not my bag. I have trouble with my knees, so climbing into those little passages on cobblestones, my knees were already a little bit sore. And Traci wasn't drinking and had given me her Prosecco. So the tables that we were sitting at had a little cup holder for your cup, but my cup was in mine. So I had hers on the table, and when we went to get up, I spilled her Prosecco all over my jean and my coat, which was on my lap. I stayed back at the hotel and clean my pants and clean my coat because I definitely needed my coat to wear every other day. So then the next day we went to Radical Weavers was our first stop. So we had to break up into 2 groups, and the first group, or my group, the first thing we did was hand loom, like they gave us this. It's called a rocket loom. And they gave us the 3 balls of yarn that we needed. One of them is so we got 2 full ones, and then the gold you didn't need as much, so they just gave us a little ball of that. And see, like in the pattern, the gold is only the middle one. And we had to do, now I'm not going to remember, the warp I think is the up and down, and the weft is the back and forth. So we had to string up our looms, and then you put your yarn on this little shuttle thing and then weave it in and out and in and out. How there's instructions that tell you how many to skip and how many, of each color to do. And this will end up being a black watch plaid. So there's all the different tartans, and this one is black watch. I didn't finish it while we were there. So I do plan on finishing this. I think it's supposed to be a coaster or a mug rug, but at the end, once you cut this, you're supposed to tie these little bits. So she didn't say, but I think I need to move mine up, or I'm not going to be able to tie these. So I have plenty of room up here to finish this square. So I need to maybe start the weft part over and push it up. But it was a lot of fun, and you learned a lot about weaving and the tradition of tartans, and we just had a lot of fun doing it. Then we on the machine looms, they were a hand operated machine. There was no moving parts that were mechanical, but it was one of those big looms. So they had them all set up for us with the colors and all the little bobbins that you need. So this is mine. The other group had like twice as much repeats as I have here, and it's supposed to be a hand towel in the end, but mine is probably a little bit too small for that. So I don't know what, if anything, I'm going to do with this. And then they said to tie these 6 at a time, but I think I might like it better tied a little bit more frequently, like 4 at a time. So I think I'm going to take those out, these, and tie them again. And you could tell I made a mistake. There were levers, and so you had to do 1 and 4, then 1 and 2, then 2 and 3, then 1 and 4 again. And if anybody talked to you where you ran out of yarn, it sometimes didn't remember, had you already pulled the thing, or did you need to pull, did you do the levers and need to pull it? So on mine, you could tell when there's a mistake. Yeah, now I can't, but it's supposed to have this sort of zigzag across, and I know I do have a mistake in it. I think it's right here, where mine is like one, it skips one over, but I guess that's what makes it handmade. Maybe you see it better from the back than the front, where I made my mistake. It's up here. But this was a lot of fun, and we met this young boy that he's a boy to me. He's a man to himself, probably. That is doing his own tartans, designing his own tartans, and he's sort of the one managing the big loom area. So in the store, I bought this that he made. So on the back of the thing, it had said hand-woven triangle pouch, Shetland lamb's wool. Peter is the weaver, and Margot is the sewist. So we met both Peter and Margot. And the one that I picked, so it's like almost a Kelly huntery green, some purple, reds, yellows, and white with a little bit of black, is the Robert Burns tartan. And Robert Burns is a poet. It says, inspired by the bard who gave voice to the people, this tartan evokes the wit, warmth, and quiet defiance of Burns' poetry. So the first time I went to Scotland, we went to Burns' house, or his lands. There was several buildings and gardens, and if I remember correctly, the poems that he wrote, a lot of, I think he probably wrote tons of them, but there's one about Mousy goes a walking. It was about a mouse anyway, and I like his tartan. They had other ones for Wallace and Bruce, and Mary Queen of Scots was one of them that they had. Later that afternoon, we went to Stirling Castle, which is the family home of Mary Queen of Scots. I'm not sure if she was born there, or was that her father was born there. Bought some tea. And then when I got home, this is loose tea. So I tried it today for the first time. My sister had given me for Christmas this tea thing. It's clipped onto my cup, where it's like the tea bags and then this little clip that you put on it. So I tried that for the first time, and the tea, which I've let get very cold, it was good. It's really good. And this mug, I know everybody shows their mugs. This mug is nothing in particular, and I think it's a Christmas one, but it's pink and it's not really Christmassy colors, and I like the size of it. And this is probably from TJ Maxx, so it's nothing special at all. Then the next day we went to a hand dyer's. It was a store and her studio all in one, and she gave us a little demonstration on dyeing yarn. We did 2 skeins of yarn and then gave them to two of the participants. And while we were there, I bought, where did I put it here? I don't like to have orphaned yarn, so I'd gotten this beautiful skein from the grocery girls. So they had similar type without the black, but the colors I thought would go good. So I'm going to try and find a scarf or a shawl kind of pattern, something that can use this much yarn. Later in the day, after we left the for the Love of Yarn, we went to, and I'm not going to be able to say this right, Aucadrain Township, and it was a wool crofting township. This is the last one, so it's a museum and it has all the outbuildings. It started raining while we were there, so a lot of us, and I was one of them, sort of bailed on the tour because the woman she was so passionate about it. I did feel bad sort of bailing on it, but my sneakers were starting to take on water. And one of the women I was standing next to said, "I'm going to go back." And I said, "Well, I'll go with you." Storm Amy, which later in the day does hit, and so it was starting to rain really hard. And the woman that was doing the walking tour wasn't taking us into the buildings to talk. We were standing outside, and she had on this big coat with a big hood that went down to her ankles, and the rest of us were in raincoats. So they had a nice little cafe. So as we were peeling off of the tour, we were meeting back up at this cafe, and they had lovely pastries and that sticky toffee cake that they have, and scones and tea. You couldn't not get a great cup of tea in Scotland. I did not have one cup of tea that I thought wasn't superior to any tea I get around here. They also had a walking group, and it's spelled Waulking, and they, if you've ever watched Outlander, walking is what they do with the fabric. So they make this Shetland wool, this Harris tweed wool, and then they sort of rub it back and forth. In Outlander, they pee on it, but they didn't here, or they probably use something that's less gross. Especially when you have a bunch of American tourists and Canadian tourists. Everybody in our group was either from America or Canada. We didn't have any people from Europe. So then we went to Oban, which is a coastal town. Our hotel was right, so it was like one of those coastal towns with a seawall with a long sidewalk around this whole bay area. Across the street from that, and the streets in Scotland are small, was our hotel, just facing right out. But there's all these little islands, so we didn't feel in any danger of Storm Amy, which for Scotland was a big storm. One of our waiters said, "I've been here 12 years, and this is the second worst storm he's ever seen." So we were hunkered down in the hotel that night. We had always planned to have dinner in the hotel. So the hotel was hit pretty hard because we were always going to eat there, but then all their other patrons were eating there too because it was raining so hard. Like, I have a video that if I can figure out how to do it, I'll put at the end, where the wind just blew, like a big wave came and it hit there was like a porch, an enclosed porch, and it just hit the window so hard. So it was not, in Oban, nothing bad happened. We kept power the whole time. Other parts of Scotland, more inland, I think got more wind damage. The next day we had to take a detour of where we were going to go on the Great Glen Road. We ended up going a different way, which was still picturesque. I don't know what the Great Glen Road would have offered us that we didn't see on the road that we did go on. But the next morning in Oban, there was seaweed like across the road that they were shoveling, back into the ocean. But it was a great day. We had a lot of fun in Oban. Oban was a beautiful town. The next day we stayed in Oban for 2 nights. So the next day we went to just like a meeting office, like a little storefront that they rent out for meetings. And we learned how to make Dorset buttons from a woman named Tanya. That's TJ Frog. And here it is. So she gave us the instructions, for the Dorset buttons, a little kit. There was yarn on the table. We didn't get a ball of yarn, but we got enough yarn to make our buttons. A little postcard of people making buttons. So here is the instructions that they gave us. And you can make it as many. We made ones with 1, 2, 3, 4, with 8 spokes. So sort of like on a clock wheel. But she said you could do as many or as few as you want. You need at least 4 because you do the spokes. I'll hold this up. And then you put the yarn on a needle and go around the spokes. So you go along to the far side, then back over, and sorry, this is making noise. They gave us some of these little button loops, which are basically curtain rings. Here's mine. Which am I supposed to hide my face? I never know what to do with this. And she was showing us things that she's made out of them, where she's sewn them together and made belts and necklaces and all sorts of things out of these Dorset buttons. But if I were making a purple sweater, even this one would have matched my ranunculus, and just put one big button at the top of your sweater, I would be done. I'd have my button already. So I used the purple yarn that they gave me, and then there was another yarn. So on mine, where there's a little bit of blue, that was a separate yarn that I did, and you just sort of weave it in at the back. So the back, it just looks like back stitches in circles, because basically that is what it is. Then we did needle felting with a woman named Bev. I have been following, and I know I talked about it on one of my 6 things, was this wonky sheep from Tiree in Scotland, and I made that. I bought a frame for it so my grandchildren don't pull his little head off. But here's mine. A lot of people did landscapes with little sheep, dotted around. The woman next to me did a very colorful one with oranges and yellows, and did like roses or chrysanthemum, whatever kind of flowers they were. Hers was very striking compared to everyone else's there was a lot with the same color scheme as mine, with blue and green and white. Hers was so vibrant and orange. Jodi made her cat, and it came out really pretty good, considering it was everybody's. I don't know if it was Jodi's first time felting, but most of us, it was our first time felting. So I bought this little shadow box. I need to get something so it's not wobbling around in there, but then my grandchildren can't pull it apart. The next day we went on a Loch Ness cruise. So we had a big drive that day. That was the day that we were supposed to take that other road. And so there was power outages where we were supposed to eat. So we really didn't have lunch that day. We ended up in Inverness. So Loch Ness is, we didn't see the monster, but we did have a lovely cruise on the water. It was one of those big catamaran kind of tour boats that had an inside and an outside. Day 6, we went to Knockhendu, which is a mill tour. So it's a preserved mill village, small village. It had a few buildings and a mill with a water wheel. So we got a tour of that. We went to Culloden Battlefield, and we ended up in Inverness and went to a kilt maker's shop, where they talked to us about the tartans and how they make. Day 8 was probably one of my favorites. We went to the studios of a woman named Di Gilpin. She is a designer, and we did a Gansey class, and that was a lot of fun. That dye Gilpin was so on. She's one of those people that you meet that are exactly in their life where they should be, that completely at home in their own skin, doing work that they love, just themselves. She's very impressive. There's also Sheila, who Di and Sheila have written a book, which I bought, called The Gansey Knitting Source Book. Gave us a little ball of yarn and a sheet with 4 patterns we could choose from. So I did this one, which is a little tree kind of pattern. And again, I didn't finish mine because there was so much to look at and so much to talk about, and they were shopping. So everybody was very intense shopping that day. So that's mine. This yarn is phenomenally loose and loopy. And it just stitches up so nice and smooth. Like at least for me, I wouldn't expect anything this loose and airy to produce this fine of a material, but it does. When we got there at each station, at the table that we were going to sit at was everybody got a dye Gilpin bag. There were all different pictures, but I got the one with dye Gilpin, and that's her dog Louie. He was so sweet. He was under the table, coming up to each person or coming back around, and he got petted by every single person in the room. He was just a lovely dog. Everybody got a free skein of yarn from dye Gilpin as well. I picked the brightest pink that they had. I wanted to pick something that wasn't my normal, taupey, oatmeal-y color. So I been trying to go outside of my comfort zone. I also bought a sweater's quantity of yarn to make this sweater, which is called Sea Biscuit. I had asked Di if she thought the color I chose would lend itself to this sweater, and she of course said it would, but she had said stay away from the marled ones. There's a couple that were marled. She had me try on, she had the one sample that they had in their studio was a medium, which nothing about me screams medium, and I thought it would be way too small on me, but it wasn't. And that's my problem is because I'm so chesty, I take that measurement, and I've been making sweaters that are too big through the shoulders and on my back, So she had me try on the medium, which was the only sample. There was no other choices. The sleeves fit perfectly. It was tight in the front, and as this sweater is supposed to be very sort of loose in the front, it wasn't on me, so I could pull it where it would close. If there was a button, I would have been able to close the button, but then it would have gaped open in the beginning. So I talked to her about, should I add one more square? And she said yes, but just in the front, not in the back or anything on the sides. And the sleeves fit perfectly in the size that she had showed me. So I'm going to lay it out, and even if it's asymmetrical, so it doesn't, hers is meant to meet right in the middle, depending on how much extra material I need, I might even just do it on one side and not the other, so then it'll be an off-center closure for me. But we will see. I have to do some planning on that one. But I'm gonna hold it up because it's in a very crinkly package, but I bought enough to make a sweater with this beautiful purple color, and it's called Gloaming. So this is 100% lamb's wool, spun in Scotland, created by dye Gilpin, and it's called Lalland DK. So she had 2 weights of yarn. I think my daughter is home. while I was there, I also bought this beautiful Harris tweed bag. So it has Gilpin made in Scotland, this little embroidered yarn, and I don't know which Harris tweed tartan this is. It doesn't say. It might be one that Gilpin designed herself. I am unclear on that. But one thing we did learn is if it needs this Harris tweed label with the orb, or it's not really Harris tweed. And because I bought a lot of yarn, they gave me a shopping bag that says Gilpin on it as well. That yarn is itching my nose. I'm sorry, I keep touching my nose now. After the Gilpin dye studio, we went to Bowbridge Alpaca Farm. So we got to feed alpacas and train alpacas. There was an obstacle course, which I didn't do. My knee was hurting me that day, and I didn't want to climb over things with my knee hurting. But I was out there taking pictures of people as they were going by, and we just had such a good time. Then they did a little needle felting. So they gave us a mold, and I made this little, so the mold was shaped like the alpaca. You just put the alpaca wool into it and needle felted it. We didn't have a lot of time to do this, so mine's like clearly an unfinished one, but it's very soft. And the woman, it's a family, so it was a daughter and son and the mother. So whoever else is in the family, we didn't meet them. We just met the three. But I bought alpaca wool from their farm. So it's Bowbridge alpacas in Scotland, and my fleece, because it's a marled, it's a brown and a creamy color, is from Emma and Eliza, baby alpaca, light fawn barber pole. So I bought 2 skeins of it. The mother had on a scarf or a shawl that I really wanted to make that, and it was garter stitch about this wide, maybe at the widest, and it sort of was one of those that come in a like a circle, a crescent kind of shape. And when you checked out, they asked you if you wanted the patterns, and I said yes, but the pattern they gave me isn't the one she had on. So I think I'm gonna write to her and ask her, like, so she's written these patterns, and the scarf pattern that they gave me is more of a long, tie around your neck kind of scarf, which wasn't really what I want for this. Or I might be able to find one online. It's a pretty classic shape and pattern. So hers had a little bit of a picot or scallopy edge around the outside, and she just had it wound around her head a couple times. And this is so soft, like you can't stop touching it. It's so nice. The last day we stayed in Edinburgh, and we did a chocolatorium. So again, we had to be in 2 different areas where one did tasting, one did making. I was in making first, tasting second. And this is going to be noisy, and I can't really, because it's in a cellophane thing, but they're all covered with cocoa powder. So we made these. They gave us chocolate spheres, and then we could fill them with ganache or caramel. Mine are filled with caramel. And one of them's missing. So then we made truffles. That's ganache that you hand shape and then roll in the cocoa. So I think one of mine is one of my spheres that's filled with caramel. And then we got a little baggie, like a piping bag of chocolate, and they gave us these acetate little squares that had cocoa butter designs. Mine was sort of this cheetah pattern, and so then we were able to mine are all broken, pipe out whatever. I had a D and some hearts, and I don't even know what that is anymore. Yeah, I'm not even sure what I made, and they're broken. So like whatever Like here, mine are broken up because I wanted to share them with my daughter. She likes dark chocolate probably more than I do, and she likes ganache. I don't like rich candies or rich desserts, so I definitely wanted to share that with her. So I wanted to show you guys first, and in the meantime, I have been breaking them. After that, we went to Scottish Textile Showcase, which here is this is a card that they gave us, and that's what the storefront looked like. And there were two women, and I didn't write down what their names were. One of them talked about Harris tweed and all the history of it, and there's double looms and single looms and all the different crafters that make it. And one woman talked about all of the sheep and wool that comes from Scotland, and they gave us a card. This one is called Soe. That's one of the sheep. The Scottish Textile Showcase was wonderful. They sold all sorts of Harris tweed raincoats and blazers and skirts and pillows and that like clothing, and then they also sold Scottish wool that wasn't Harris tweed but regular wool blankets, and they were so soft and fluffy. In the front of the store that they had a chase with all of these fluffy pillows and blankets on it that just made you want to curl up with your knitting or a good book in that chase. So everybody had a great time there. I bought, where are you? I put you down somewhere. Here. I bought a Harris tweed bag. That I probably will use as a project bag more than as a purse, especially staying down here in Florida. I would look odd with a gigantic woolen purse. Then the last workshop that we had was a knitting workshop, and they gave us one wound and one unwound ball of yarn from Ginger Twist Studio, which was one of the stores in Edinburgh. And the colorway that they gave us, and we all got the same colorway, was called Gingeroo, and it is 50% merino and 50% silk. So the woman that was teaching the class was Samira Hill, and we learned to make this lace weight shawl with a leaf pattern. This color is gorgeous, but the color that she had on was a rich, rusty, burnt orange color, and for this pattern, it was the perfect color. I didn't get very far on mine. So that the last day was packed. So we had the chocolatorium, the Scottish textile, this, and then the whiskey tasting and dinner. So we had a lot going on. They did give us time off for lunch, and two other women and myself Ubered to two yarn stores. So our class for this was an hour and a half maybe, and apparently we left a little early because they seemed to say it was over, but when we got to the whiskey experience, our tour guide was like, you were supposed to be there till 5, and we had all left at 4:30. So I don't know, we got our wires crossed somehow, but that's as far as I got on mine. Some people, the girl next to me, she got a lot more done on hers. I have a hard time when everyone's talking and I'm listening to the teacher and I'm walking, just, I don't know, I get distracted. At the two yarn stores that we went to, I had been watching a podcast that I believe is called, whoops, I'm just dropping everything, Baubles and Berries, and it's a girl called Ode, and she lives in Edinburgh, and she makes these stitch markers. So the one that I got is birds, little tiny birds. She also had ones that were thistle, which I would have liked, but that when I went to buy them, the store didn't have that one anymore. There was mushrooms, which my friend Laura that I just met bought mushrooms. And there was a fourth one, and now I don't remember what the fourth one was. They didn't have it when I went to buy mine. They only had the birds and something, sheep, I think. So she had talked on her podcast about a friend of hers opening a yarn shop called Fiber Yard. So I had written her on her comments, oh, I'm going to Scotland tomorrow. I'm going to try and go. They were closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. So I didn't get to go the first day when I was there by myself. So the last day, the next Friday, is when Laura and Kathy and I went to Fiber Yard. So I bought some yarn and they gave me this free little stitch marker with an alpaca on it. They didn't have Ode's stitch markers in stock, so I didn't get those there. I bought yarn from her, and I bought a sweater's quantity of, this is Italian yarn called a chic blend, and it is 60% Abruzzi wool, 20% alpaca, and 20% mohair. And it says Italian yarn on the label. And I got this, I'll take it out of here, this gray with little bits of blue and amber in it. I am going to make a pattern similar to the Ranunculus or the Fiorelli that I had bought. I already bought yarn for that one from Frankie Gray Fibers. It's going to come with my MCal yarn. But that same kind of thing, a little bit of a textured yoke, short sleeves sweater. I'm finding that in Florida, I can't wear a lot of sweaters. And in Connecticut, we have enough, mild days that a short sleeve sweater is not a bad wardrobe choice. So I'm going to make, this yarn is scratchier than some, but I'm going to go for it. So I usually have the pattern in mind, or I'll Google it while I'm at the store. But I have enough yarn to, even if I had to make another ranunculus, which I probably will, because I really like this pattern so much, but I don't want to be, so dull that I just keep making the same pattern over again. So after we left Fiber Yard, we went to Ginger Twist. On the day where everyone went to the vaults, some people peeled off of that vault tour and went to Ginger Twist, and I had missed out on that because I had stayed back to wash my raincoat out. But I bought some buttons. I got fish and crustaceans, kind of a one, whale, and then some sheep, one black sheep and the rest white sheep. And that's where I bought Ode's stitch markers. And I think that's it. I bought 2 pins. I don't buy a lot of tchotchkes when I'm traveling, and I don't I just don't buy a lot of, I'm not a big shopper. All evidence to the contrary with the yarn. I would do like to go yarn shopping, but regular shopping where you're just looking at a bunch of tchotchkes, I that's not my bag. But I did buy at Stirling Castle this little pin with the thistle. That's like the national symbol of Scotland. And then at a little handmade store that was near the Chocolatorium, like we walked from the Chocolatorium to the Scottish textile mill or textile showcase, and there was a little store in there, and I bought this other thistle thing. Later that day, we went to the Scottish whiskey experience. Scotch whiskey experience, and then had dinner at the same place. They have a restaurant called the Amber Restaurant, which did a tasting menu. So it was a prefix menu where they gave us veggie haggis and smoked salmon, and we had a couple different small tastings of the entrees, and then sticky toffee pudding for dessert. I think we got to pick the dessert. We didn't get one of everything for the desserts, and it was so good and so tasty. We had such a good time. Everyone was so friendly. I was worried being a single traveler, but I would say half the knitters were there on their own. So there were 5 couples. So we had 5 non-knitters with us, and so those, and we had one mother-daughter, but everyone else was by themselves. So you came down to breakfast and sort of just ate as tables filled up. You just ate with whoever was the last 4 people together, and there was none of the oh, can I sit with you? Like, you did ask, can I sit with you, just to make sure you weren't taking somebody's seat. But it was a wonderful time. Everybody stayed together. We never had to wait for anybody that was late for the bus or anything like that. I think that is it for me. But I will keep you in my heart of stitches. Thank you.